So here's one pin routed out now, absolutely perfect, and then we've got one drilled ready to hog out. You know, it's well worth using the Frosner bit and getting the, you know, getting the worst of the material out, getting the worst of the wood out, sort of thing, because you'll only end up blunting your router cutter, cutting it. And remember me saying about don't forget to put this on the right side. I put it on the wrong side, so it was on this side. So, you know, not only did I have the mark in there and the drill holes sort of thing, I, you know, didn't even attempt to route it. I thought, oh, I'll put it on the wrong side. So there we go. I used the 2 screw locations of the 2E strings here, and that wasn't enough. The thing still wobbled a bit, so I did the old super glue and tape trick there. So that kept it all in place fine. So that body's marching along there now, and now we can go on to this one. So here we go, we want it that way. I'll just do the super glue thing to show you. What I basically do is put a line of tape just down the middle there. Now we want it that way, put a line of tape down the middle here, squash it down well. Where is it? Get your super glue. You're basically just making double-sided tape, just a thin scooch of glue down there, some accelerator, give it a light spray, make sure you get it in the right place. There's not much wiggle room when you don't, if you don't. We can put these 2 screws in. So that's nice and solid on there now, and we won't have any problems. I prefer the screws and the super glue, I must admit. But so right, with the right orientation. So I've go back to the pin router now and get this routed out. At some point I'm going to have to redirect my efforts from doing the bodies to doing the neck, and in preparation I want to make a couple of vintage truss rods. I know you can buy these things, but just with the state of play at the moment, getting stuff is so difficult, and they're not that difficult to make. Basically the main rod is 3/16 mild steel. Don't be tempted by piano wire or stainless. It's just more difficult to work, and the originals certainly weren't. So you've got the main rods, 3/16 steel, the anchor bar, or the anchor bar on the end is I think this is 5/8, no, can't remember, I'll have to look up what it is, but this is the right stuff, I know. And then, so what you have to do is thread both ends, one with a longer length thread for the truss rod nut, and the other end threaded so it threads into into the stop at the end, and then you whack over the end basically, so it will never come out. The originals were threaded with a an 11/32 UNF United Fine thread, which Gibson still use, I believe. I don't think they've gone metric, so all the brass truss rod nuts that Gibson use and all that thread. So I have a UNF thread for that, the 11/32 thread, and yeah, we'll get on. What I do is with the mild steel is I just use my grindstone just to put a slight taper on the end, which will help start the thread, but basically just stick it in the vise and start threading. I must admit that I find this a bit of a pain in the arse because it's not woodwork, you know, but so yeah, I just like to get it done as a separate job sort of thing, and then they're ready and waiting for when I can put them in, and we'll go from there. I mean, the one thing I'm kind of assuming, since the Flying V is it's basically a Les Paul scale length guitar with all the same fret measurements and things like that, I just can't imagine that they'd use a different length truss rod in it. So I'm going from the between 1958, when the first burst Les Paul was on the market, to the 1958 and 1959 model, is documented that they had a straight truss rod in them. When the necks got a bit thinner, I mean, you can tell that because you can see the truss rod filler strip in the front pickup cavity, and if you project that to the depth of that sort of thing to the end, you can tell that the truss rod is most probably straight. That filler strip reduces a bit in thickness in depth in 1960, when they started doing the bursts with a thinner neck profile, and the truss rod in them was fitted on a curve sort of thing. So I'm assuming that this is 1958. They wouldn't have changed any of their jigs just to knock out a V-neck. So we're going for copying the truss rod layout in the 58 burst Les Paul and copying it for this sort of thing. So you start off with mild steel 463 millimeters long, and that will do your truss rod. So we'll get on and start threading. Well, here I am threading the end of the truss rod. I haven't got a tap wrench for these nut style dies, so I'm just using a G clamp on it, which is fine. When you tap, you put some oil on it, it'll cut much nicer and make it easier for you, but do something like a turn and then back it off a little bit, because that breaks off the waste from the thread that you're cutting. Just keep going like that, and it's a bit laborious, but I don't actually know how long the thread is on the end on the adjustable end with a nut. I've seen it a few different lengths kind of thing, so I'm not really sure, so I just put plenty on there kind of thing. I mean, you'll never see it anyway because it's in the neck, but it would be horrible to put it on and then suddenly have not enough threads on it. So I give it plenty. I bet you like Gibson put an inch on it or something, But the thing is, when you start cutting the thread, you've ground a little taper on the top. Keep a lot of downward pressure, turn the thread on, and then it'll slowly grip, but don't back it off until you've wound down a few threads sort of thing, otherwise you'll find that it won't catch again. But it's not really a difficult process, it's just not woodwork, so I don't like doing it, basically. My dad and my brother are fantastic metal workers. I'm more of the wood guy. Well, I think we're plenty long enough there. Here I am drilling the holes in these barrels, the stop barrels kind of thing, for the end of the truss rod. I prefer to do them when they're still on the long bar, so you can line something up and the vise has got plenty to clamp on. It's a bit of can be a bit of an awkward job, because you know you want to drill through the centre of the rod, obviously, not have it like sort of turned so that the hole doesn't go through the main diameter sort of thing. I mean, there's probably 101 better ways of doing it, but what I do is I flatten off the top of the rod just slightly with a file, so the drill doesn't tend to wander around it, and then put 2 centre punches in, and then we're all good. I'm having to hold up the phone with my hand because this is my phone stand clamp sort of thing, but there we go. Get back to you when we're there. Right, hi there. Well, I've cut these 2 barrels to length now. I've filed up the ends of them. I was getting a bit mixed up. They're actually they're 3/8 diameter, 5/8 length. That's what they are. And also I've drilled a countersunk hole in the end. That will become apparent, but that's what it's for. But that's basically when you thread the bar through, you leave a little bit of it stick out, and then you whack the hell out of it, and you know, basically bulge the end of the bar so it can't pull back through. We've got to thread these now with the matching 1132 UNF tap, and get my taps and dies mixed up sort of thing. Yeah, we'll go through that. I mean, if you look up on Google and say, you know, what size drill to cut a 1132 thread, it'll tell you. I use a 4mm drill, seems to work okay. Same process again, you know, take your time and you'll be all right. So I'll get that done. Okay, I've tapped those now, those little barrels. So we've got the fixed end of the truss rod, and this should screw. Look at that. That screws perfectly on there. Now we can, oh, we've got it the wrong way around, but let's get it on the right way. So now we've got that countersunk hole there, and we can bash the end of this into that, and that will be fixed on then. Now the thing is that, like, you know, okay, well, I've just done that. I've threaded those through and whacked and filed the ends off so they're nice. So we've got a couple of truss rods there now, which are ready. The next bit I've got to make is the D-washers for the end. You know, again, you can buy them, but there's a multitude of sizes out there: vintage, historic, vintage, this, that and the other. I know what sizes the original were, and to be honest, I don't know whether it's just a time thing where guitars have been maintained over the years, but I've seen and read of bursts that have had D, you know, the standard D-shaped washer underneath the brass nut, and I've heard of some just having a round washer. Whether that's something that was put on later, you know, the D-washer got lost for some reason during maintenance and just put a round washer on. But I'll make some D-washers, and then these order some Gibson nuts for the end, and then the truss rods will be finished, which is nice. So coffee time, I think. Oh, hi, back again. Now, the next thing we want to make for these truss rods is the D-shaped washer on the end. Now, when you look online, You know, you could, of course you can buy the D-washers, but the ones you most commonly see are ones for you know, modern historic Gibsons, and they are quoted as being something like 18.3 millimeters wide, and then they say won't fit vintage Gibsons which were bigger back in the, you know, back in the day. That's not true. The ones I've measured, the actual width of the truss rod adjustment kind of scoop in the headstock is actually narrower. I mean, the ones I've measured have been more around sort of 15, 16 millimeters, something like that. I mean, they are sort of finished by hand, but I'm kind of assuming with that kind of measurement that the D-washers, I mean, I've taken them off and measured them anyway of various guitars I've repaired in the past, and I remember doing a Gibson single cut junior of the same year, and the truss rod, the truss rod adjustment hole was like about 16 millimeters wide. So I'm guessing, I mean, that equates to about 5/8 for the washer. So I'm going to stick to what I've measured, and the plans I've got for a for a burst Les Paul, a 59, also show that that truss rod scoop at being a maximum width of about 15 odd millimeters. So that's what I'm sticking to, and 5/8 is basically that's the translation to metric. So that's what I'll be going for. I've got this quite thick steel. They were quite thick actually. I mean, they were obviously stamped out originally. I haven't got that luxury. I mean, they're a bit of a pain in the arse to make actually, but again, I mean, just right, here's these pesky little washers. Now I made them by you know, just cutting them out of 360, or you know, fairly chunky steel sort of thing, which the originals were. I mean, they look nice and old now because it's a crappy old bit of steel I had, but mainly just, you know, drilled the holes in, you know, nice and accurate sort of thing while it was still a large plate, and then cut out the D shape of them. They're not half a circle, they're slightly more, if you like, so they're just above the diameter of the circle, and then basically held them in a pliers and ground them round. Too much hard work to cut file by hand, but you can see I've also, I don't know if you can see on there, I've managed to put the barbs on the end as well, and basically just put them in the vise and clonked them with an old wood chisel just to burr over the edges, so you get those little barbs that the originals had. I know it's like epoxy, like it's such small detail, but you know, that's you may as well do it sort of thing if you're doing it. But now we've done those, which is really nice, just to get that out of the way. I'm not a huge fan of like metal working, not with woodwork sort of thing, so at least we've got them done now, and I've got the nuts on order, so that's the truss rod complete, so I can get on with the necks now, and we're all good. But I think these look nice and old sort of thing. So I think we're all good with that, and they're the right size as well, because like I say, the modern ones you buy are 18 mil diameter, which is too big for the vintage ones that I've looked at. So anyway, we've got ones the right size now, and I can put my metalwork stuff away, thank goodness, and then get back to me good old wood. Lovely job.